Good evening, Lumberjacks, and welcome to the first official session of All Things to Turn the Tables. I'm your host, J.R. Harris, and today we will be talking a little bit about what goes into our podcast segments, followed by our first official topic. Here at A Tetra T, we believe that there's more to talk about in the world than just one thing. Yes, murder podcasts and drama are fun, but A Tetra T is your one and only hub to request whatever you want. Simply email us at atetratpc@gmail.com if you've got a suggestion, and we'll see how well your ideas play out across the airwaves. Before we begin, I'd like to make a lumberjack-based analogy of inspiration for you all. Each of us has our own story to tell. Like a lumberjack, we can go into the forest, observe the trees, the stories that have already been cut down, lived, and experienced. But it's up to each of us to find our own individual tree to start working at. This tree, your tree, will be the foundation for your house and your experience in life. So rather than try to equate your experience, your tree, to somebody else's, find your own tree and make the best of life. Now, our first topic today comes from a Denver-born man with a knack for the art of education. He wrote, "Dear ATT, TTT. My name is Time Turner, and I heard you were going to be starting a podcast. I know that it doesn't sound very fun, but I thought you could discuss a theory that's been picking at my brain for a few days. The theory of relativity. I'm trying to convince my class at college that time is non-linear and happens all at once, but they all seem to think that I'm crazy. Would you be willing to discuss time and how much the views of it have changed since humans began thinking of it? I would be so, three so's, happy if you could talk about it. And I hope your podcast blows up someday." Aww. Well, thank you, Time Turner. That's very sweet. And it's written by the newest fan, Time Turner. Well, good news for you, Time Turner. We picked up your pleas and we're about to create a voice for your troubles. Today, we cover the reality of reality. This is actually a big concept, Time Turner. It's not something we can flat out tell to the people listening in. So where would we even start? Well, I've got a suggestion for you. We'll start right at the beginning. Time itself didn't actually come from the phrase, but from the moon. Nearly 6,000 years ago, during the Paleolithic Age, the early human civilizations used lunar calendars to be able to track the days that passed by. These days, what they called them, did everything. Predict the seasons, help with the cultivation of crops, and it even helped certain people figure out when the best time to have a certain gendered baby was. It was, and still somewhat is, believed that the best time to get freaky for a girl is right before ovulation. But that's not what we're here to talk about, of course. We're here to talk about time. Aside from the lunar calendars, the Egyptians used early forms of sundials and shadow projections to keep track of time using shadows on the ground. With certain markings on the ground that indicated each hour, Egyptians used the hours of the day to predict sun up and sun down. While these early systems may have been primitive, they were essential in establishing what we know today as the Global Positioning System, or GPS, which keeps all the clocks in the world in check within their specific time zones. We can thank those lovely early people for their contribution to one of the most important systems in the entire world, but I would recommend thanking them in your heart, because I can almost guarantee you that they are all dead by now. So, time. What is time? Where did it come from? Has it always been there? Are we just standing on a big rock with these tiny in comparison brains trying to conceive something that we cannot possibly comprehend? And is that why millennials are depressed and existential? Now, I'll tell you one thing, Time Turner. When I wake up in the morning, climb out of bed butt naked, and peer through my window at the lovely walls outside of my house, I don't even think about it. In fact, most of the time I'm hungry and I'll do a hopeful rain dance for spring showers, summer showers, any type of showers. For me, time has always been there, guiding me, even when it didn't make much sense. So why are you thinking about it so hard? Well, I'll tell you right now, it's because it's important. So back to the bookwork. This reminds me of a man named Rene Descartes. at least that's what I hope his name is, who said, hopefully you know, "I think, therefore I am." Now, we all know that philosophers are a little bit whack, but I can at least say that if you, like many people, consider this world to be a tiny bubble around you, Descartes had a huge point. I actually recall an essay written by a friend of mine in college. He related time to a man in China. Now, this was a research paper, so I'll give you the fine details. He said that if we can't prove this man exists, then he can't exist at all. At the point of thinking about him, he only exists because you give your word that he does. Descartes was saying that since the mind can perceive itself, it's also real because it can be proven. So if you want to get simple with it, all time is memories. Once any minute, second, millisecond, time has passed, it becomes a memory, and that's what we use to measure time, is memories. Do you remember what would happen when you woke up in the morning, go outside, grab a stick, and play sword fights with it? Do you remember doing that? I certainly don't, but for some people they did, and those things happened because they remember them. And this idea of time passing and moving forward is called linear progression. This theory states that the future hasn't happened, the past already happened, and the present is happening now in the current moment that you're living in. Many people agree with this theory of time, but since it seems like you don't, let's talk about your theory. Now, folks listening, and what Time Turner is talking about is something called the block universe theory, first mentioned by Albert Einstein. Now, when I say block universe, I'm not saying that the universe is a cube, nor that the earth is flat, or anything like that. No, right here, I'm saying that the universe is constantly expanding, and all of time is happening at once. The other day, I saw an anonymous quote, surprisingly, about this, and it said something along the lines of, "Time does not exist, but clocks do." It went on to discuss time being a human construct rather than a truly observable force made to understand why the sun went up and down. Now, I will admit, Einstein was a very smart man, constantly being proven more right every day, which is much more than I can say for myself. And here's how his theory went. He said that time was straight and narrow like an arrow, but that space was curved. This curvature allowed the straight line to bend, and points from this straight line could touch wherever they wanted to, causing, of course, all of time to have the capacity to happen at once, at the same time, simultaneously. He also argued that the only reason we didn't have dinosaurs, or he implied that the only reason we didn't have dinosaurs, is because we can't perceive all of time at once, and we had to find a way to sort it all out that made sense given our progression. And this is the layman's explanation for the theory of relativity, at least to my understanding. A YouTuber not very long ago named Mac Lethal actually rapped. Yes, he made a rap about the theory of relativity, and he went extremely in depth about it. I'm no expert on science, so I would direct you to him if you want to hear this theory more in depth, because there are two parts to the theory of relativity, actually. So let me ask the world, how crazy do you think Time Turner's theory is? Personally, I say it doesn't sound crazy at all. Everything in this world around us exists because at some point in time somebody said it did. This includes all of the things that we can't see, time. Now, the Earth may be revolving around the sun. We can see that, we observe it, but time is an invisible concept that somebody created a word for to explain the supposed movement of the sun. Since time itself, with the numbers and measurements, never existed in a physical form before it was named, Time Turner might actually be onto something. We all have this notion of what exists because of the fact that we can comprehend its existence. But what about the things that we can't comprehend at any given moment? If Descartes was right, then those things don't exist, right? Anybody can tell me I'm wrong. I'm just a man speaking into a microphone. But from where I'm sitting, it seems like things only exist because we know that they do. But as soon as we stop knowing they exist, they might not exist at all. Now understand, folks, this is all just theory-based. Time Turner is neither right nor wrong here, and without scientific proof, I don't think anybody can be proven right nor wrong about what time truly is. I'm sure time travel could solve these issues for us, but that's a topic for a later segment. Now, I do believe, though, that that's all the time that I have to talk today, So if you have any ideas or wacky things you'd like to hear on A Tetra T, you can email them all to our station at atetratpc@gmail.com, all lowercase letters. We can do songs, raps, creative writing, lectures, talks, Q&As, and yes, murder podcasts. Anything your heart desires here at A Tetra T. After all, it's the people's voice, not the networks. So stay bright, and do remember, if it's not us, it's definitely your best friend, Gus.